Rev up your engines!
Well, you knew it was going to happen. Now Kia, the Korean maker, is making an electric pickup. It's the 2024 Kia EV9. It's a pickup truck. Everybody's jumping in the pickup truck race now for the electric vehicles. Now, this pickup is going to use a 215 horsepower rear-wheel drive electric motor, the same they use in the regular electric vehicles. And they say it'll have up to 300 miles of range, but we all know what that means. You're hauling stuff, towing stuff. It's going to be a lot less than that, sometimes less than 100 miles. A budget pickup truck. This isn't one of these Hummer $200,000 jobs. But they're still not going to be cheap. It's going to be 2024 and they're not out yet. And they think that they'll start around 60 grand. So it's still an expensive toy. Still starting at $60,000 for an unproven thing, electric pickup trucks. But the Koreans were going to jump in the market. So they made a ton. The Chinese probably will too. And I gotta say, it's not a bad looking pickup. It actually looks like a pickup. It's not like that crazy Cybertruck nonsense Elon's been messing around with. It actually looks like a pickup truck. And Kia's got dealerships all over the place, so they got an infrastructure for selling the stuff. We'll see what happens in 2024. Not out yet, but they say they're going to be making an electric pickup. They're all going to be jumping on the bandwagon and see what happens. Well, now a Stanford study in California is warning people in California they shouldn't charge their cars at night at home. Now, one, there's no way I would charge a car inside my garage anyway. Things might start on fire, burn your whole house down, right? But they're not talking about that. They're talking about the energy grid. So they're saying, don't charge at home. You're hogging the energy grid. Do it at your workplace or at a public charging station, right? Looked at a study recently, and 90% of the car charging in California is done at home. So while the Stanford study said that this charging at night is leading to a 25% increase in power consumption at night, and they don't have the power to do it. And then this is what the small amount of electric vehicles that are out there now. Imagine what happened if there were millions of them. Here's what the Stanford study said. Hey, they try to sell you this crap. It's just unbelievable, the nonsense that comes with electric cars. I quote, if more people charge their vehicles during the day at work or public charging stations, it could reduce greenhouse gas emissions and avoid the added cost of generating and storing electricity. So they tell you to buy these stupid electric cars. And then they say, well, don't charge them at night. It's taxing our grid. Charge them when you're at work or at a public station, right? Where, of course, you're going to pay more. People at public station, hey, they got to make a profit. They got to run the business, right? You do cheaper at home, right? But no, they're saying, oh, you're taxing our grid. Yeah, the whole grid's taxed already, you stupid fools. And if you think you're going to get Americans to spread their things all over the place, guess again, what if everybody decided, yeah, we're going to charge at the public and office, and in the daytime they'd have a lack of electricity? This whole thing is stupid. It's like a bunch of idiots, chickens with their head cut off, are running around giving you exact opposite things. Well, you can charge it at home. Oh, no, don't charge it at home. It's going to tax the grid. I hate to tell you idiots. It's going to tax the grid any way you look at it. But I do have to say, I would not charge one inside my garage. I got a charger here because the house I bought here, guy had a Tesla that I got the house from. So he took his charger, but he left the 220-volt receptacle, and I had 3 different companies send me chargers I'm testing out. But I don't charge them in the garage. Got a nice cord that plugs outside the garage, and the charger, I hook it up outside the garage. There's a nice long cable, and it's in the driveway, away from trees and away from the garage when I charge anything up. Throaty says, what's the proper way to clean transmission pan? When you take the tranny pan from the car, how do you clean it right? Some people say brake cleaners, parts cleaner, even soap and water to clean the pan. The pan is sitting there's a bunch of crud in it, right? And it's transmission oil, which is real greasy, real slippery. My advice is to take it off. First, just put it over a pan and wipe it. Paper towels, right? Wipe most of the stuff off. Now you got most of the dirt off. If you want to be an absolute fanatic, I use brake cleaner. Spray it on, and then you wipe it off. Brake cleaner evaporates within a couple of minutes and there's nothing left. And then put it all back together again. Because it doesn't leave any kind of residue, it just evaporates and comes off. But if you do a good job with a towel, you can get all of it off too. So if you're a real fanatic, yeah, you can use some brake cleaner at the end if you wanted to. Aminor says, my AC is out. I got an 05 Honda Accord. Trying to get it repaired, no one tells me the truth. 2 mechanics told me it was a compressor, another one told me I needed to replace the evaporator expansion valve, but all of them have quoted me a price over $800. I'm not sure what to do. AC work is somewhat educated guesswork, unfortunately, because you go back in the day when first had air conditioning systems mass produced in the 1960s. Some of them had 5 separate service ports. So we could put gauges on 5 different positions and he really analyzed what the system's doing. Today, some only have 1 and some most have two, a low and a high pressure. But that's it. So you can only measure the low and high pressure between 2 points. Before, you could do it with 5 points. And you could pinpoint, okay, this is restricted, that isn't restricted. So basically, you're dealing with an educated guess. Who knows what anybody's telling you one way or the other. The cheapest fix that might fix it without throwing a bunch of money, you start with this. Evacuate the system out. Have it all sucked out. Fill it up with a factory load and see what happens. Sometimes it's as simple as just low on refrigerant. If that fixes it, great. Now, if not, from there on, it's an educated guess. If they see there's a buildup of pressure before on the high side, but the low side is real low or going negative, yeah, then you probably have a bad expansion valve or a clogged evaporator. And on the Hondas, you got to take them all apart. And if you're going to take all that dash apart, you might as well as change the expansion valve and the evaporator, change them both, and then see what happens. But it's still an educated guess because we can only test at 2 points. It's an 05. It's old as the hills. Odds are the compressor's weak. Whether it's still working or not, hard to say. You do what I do. Take it all out, fill it up, see what happens. High pressure on the high side and low or negative on the low side. Then at a minimum, the expansion valve is clogged up and probably evaporated too. And I changed those two in the dryer and pray it fixed it. But realize you're probably going to need a compressor at some point in time. The thing's old. You know, it's almost 20 years old. It's going to wear out. Okay, Nation 1018 says, buying a new car from a GMC dealership. I want a GMC Sierra 1500 AT4 in Michigan. They got 300 trucks in a lot, but they won't budge on their price. How are you going to come down? They got friends and family price advertising all vehicles, but they won't honor us unless you have an immediate family member who worked for GM. How can they negotiate in this market? Well, you know, there was a shortage, and they're still pretending there's a shortage, and if they're not going to budge, go to Ford. I'd rather buy Ford anyways. Their quality's better than GM. GM's probably one of the worst manufacturers in the world these days. But if you want one, go to the Ford dealer, get their prices and say, hey, I can get this at Ford. I'll buy a Ford instead of your GM. Oh, no, come back, GM, come back. We'll do some kind of a deal. Look, they want to sell you something, right? And, of course, they want to sell it as high as possible. And they're scumbags. They'll sit there for hours arguing because guess what? Salesmen, time means nothing to them. They don't get paid by the hour. They get straight commissions in most places. So when they sell, they make money. When they don't, they don't. So they're not selling it all that often. So they got time, and they'll sit and argue because the higher price you pay, the bigger their commission is. Go to Ford. Say, hey, I got better deal than Ford. I don't even buy yours. Oh, no, come back. We'll deal. That's how you do it. You don't jump up and down. You love their vehicles. You say, yeah, you know, I'm kind of leaning to Ford now. The quality's better. And then see what those clowns have to say. George Strobel said, Scotty, what's a good moped brand? Well, you can't beat Honda mopeds. They make phenomenal mopeds. Now, of course, there's a bunch of Chinese knockoffs, right? They're dirt cheap. But of course, they're not made with the quality of a Honda. You want a quality one, get a Honda. But here's the best way to buy a moped. Buy a used one. A lot of people buy them, they never use them, or they buy them, they wreck it, doesn't really hurt them, they don't weigh much, they bounce around, but it scared them, so they're never going to get on it again. You can get phenomenal deals on used mopeds. I wouldn't go and buy a new one. I've seen people bring new ones over to me, and I'm like, what'd you pay for that? I'll say, well, I paid, $4,500. I'm like, $4,500 for a moped? You get used ones all day long for $500, $800. If you look around, they're very easy to buy used, and most people don't put that many miles on them, so they're not worn out. You know, you find plenty of cars with over 100,000 miles. Rarely do you see a moped that's got hardly any miles on it. Ding says, I have a 2009 Camry SE. The back seat access to the trunk is a small door behind the armrest. Is it possible to make the seat backs open to get larger access to the trunk? Some of them you can, and some of them you can't. You want to look at your seats. If your seats don't have little clips you pick up so you can fold them down to get in the trunk, no, you can't, because that's part of the body of the car. Some Camrys are made that the back is just metal, and there's that little hole you can access it, but the seats themselves do not come down. So unless you want to take the whole car apart and start cutting it, but I wouldn't advise it, because you start cutting that metal, that's part of the unibody construction of the frame, and you'd be making the car weaker, so I would not. If you can't, I would not start cutting pieces of metal off. Pepe and Nani Lale says, what are your opinion of car warranty companies? Well, normally it's not a good opinion. I got a whole video on that. The problem is warranties are what? They're an insurance policy. okay? But you pay money for the insurance policy. Then you try making a claim. And we all know what happens when you make a claim. Half the time, well, no, you're not covered under that warranty for that claim, right? They are always looking. You didn't change the oil enough. You didn't change this. You didn't take care of it. We're not going to pay for it. I had a customer with one. They brought it to me, and I saw what was wrong. I analyzed it. I said, that's a $350 job. Here's what the parts and the labor is, right? So they said, we got this warranty. So I called the 1-800 number. They wanted to pay me $150. And I told the customer, I said, look, you know me, I'm honest. I said, that's a $350 job. They want me to do it for $150. That's absurd. The parts cost me more than that. Well, they wanted me to use these cheap Chinese parts instead of the Toyota OEM parts, right? I don't like the warranty stuff. To me, it's a lot of blame. Anytime you deal with an insurance company, it's to their advantage to charge you money to buy the policy, but then not to cover anything when they need to. So I don't like them. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.